Lesson 23, Science 7, and we have one more piece of evidence to explore today. Yes, that's DNA. This beautiful molecule that I have right here. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's awesome that she has a molecule of DNA just lying around her home. Well, it's lying around in every single one of your cells, too. Believe it or not, this molecule has helped scientists support the claim that whales evolved from land-dwelling mammals. But how? Today, I want you to grab your pencil, your journal slip, your science journal, and later on you'll need a video link that's posted on your journal slip and on Schoology. First, we have to be clear on where DNA is located. If I have a whale and I zoom into the whale's cells, oh, I've missed these zoom-ins, I can see that inside the nucleus of every single cell, we have something called chromosomes. And chromosomes are nothing more than DNA that's tightly coiled up. And if I just uncoil the DNA, I can see that the DNA is actually a ladder with these 4 nitrogen bases shown in 4 different colors. And these strings of nitrogen bases are called genes. Genes are the instructions for making proteins. Proteins will give you your traits. Now, I know it's crazy that this molecule actually makes you who you are, but it's true. Here, I have a video clip to help me out.
Stated Clearly presents, what exactly is a gene? Each one of our cells contains 46 strands of DNA.
See that ladder?
A single strand is made of millions of particles called nucleotides, and these nucleotides come in 4 different types, which scientists have labeled A, C, T, and G.
Now those labels for those nucleotides or nitrogen bases, they actually do have names. This is adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. We just label them A, T, G, and C for short. And you can see that these nucleotides line up along the ladder. This is where the instructions are.
A gene is a special stretch of DNA, a sequence of A's, C's, T's, and G's that code for something. A gene contains information for a cell to read and use, but what exactly does that information do?
Yeah, what does it do?
You might have heard that there's a blue-eyed gene, a freckle gene, possibly even an anger gene, but single genes don't literally make things like eyeballs or freckles or temper tantrums. Genes make proteins.
Oh.
Those proteins then interact with each other and all sorts of chemicals inside the body to build things like eye pigments, freckles, and mood-altering hormones.
Okay.
A single strand of DNA contains thousands of genes or unique protein recipes. Humans have roughly 20,000 altogether. Some genes are small, only about 300 letters long. Others are well over 1 million. The length and sequence of a gene determine the size and shape of the protein it builds.
Oh, so genes are instructions for these things, these proteins, and these proteins are working in your body to give you your traits. But how can DNA help us understand how animals are related? Let me fast forward here to another part in the clip.
Different creatures have different genes, which is ultimately why their bodies look and function differently. But one of the many reasons scientists believe all life on Earth is related is that the basic DNA code, the language of A's, C's, T's, and G's, is pretty much the same for all living things. Many creatures even share some of the same genes. You might not be too surprised to learn that humans and chimps, which are closely related, share 96% of their genetic code.
And that number is actually a little higher.
A lowly fruit fly has in common with a beautiful swimsuit model? Surprisingly, about half of its genes.
Okay, so I heard in the clip that we can look at the DNA codes of organisms to figure out how closely related they are. Let's pull a short segment of DNA from a whale. You can see here, this short segment is made up of a stretch of A, C, T's, and G's. Now, I know this model is limited. In actuality, the stretch of DNA would be much, much longer. But for the purposes of what we're trying to explain here, we're just going to work with this limitation of the model. Now, we can compare it to the DNA of one of its ancestors. Let's take a look at Dorudon. If we compare the DNA stretches of each organism, how many bases are in common? Take a moment to look now. Count up how many bases are in common. Like right here, I see this adenine matches up in the same spot with this adenine. So this would be a match. But here, this isn't. This is a cytosine, and in this second spot is a thymine. So this isn't a match. How many matches or how many bases in common are there? Yep, there are 8 bases in common. In fact, the only one that was different was right here. The rest of the nitrogen bases, or the nucleotides, match up perfectly. So if I'm thinking about it, if I had to put this ancestor on the timeline, I put it really close to the whale because they must be pretty closely related in time. Write the name of that ancestor on your timeline on your journal slip. Okay, so Ambulocetus's DNA has 5 bases in common with the modern whale, and Rhodocetus shares 6 bases in common. Basilosaurus shares 7 bases, and Pakicetus has 4 bases in common. Remember, the more bases in common to the modern whale, the closer the relative. Dorudon had 8, so then Basilosaurus comes next with 7, then Rhodocetus, then Ambulocetus, and finally the most distant relative, Pakicetus. 4 lines of evidence for evolution, but you might need some more convincing. Well, I might just have some evidence that you can find right on your own body. That's right, on your very own human body. Your body is a museum full of ancient relics that no one really needs anymore. We call these vestigial structures. Your wisdom teeth are a good example of a vestigial structure. We have them, but they don't really serve a purpose anymore. So much of how we ended up as humans reflects what our animal ancestors needed for survival. This is where I want you to go to that video link posted on your journal slip and on Schoology and watch that clip. It shows 4 vestigial structures left over from our earlier mammal ancestors. I promise you, the clip is very good. I even learned some new things. You're really going to like it. After you watch, you have a choice as to which prompt you want to respond to on our discussion board. Will it be prompt 1 or this prompt, prompt 2? Both are going to make for a great discussion, but it's going to require you to really think about what you watched. Mrs. Sonoda and I purposely developed these prompts so that you could think about what you were seeing. You know, get those brain juices flowing. Today, we want you to post to the discussion board. Make sure that you've really thought about which prompt you want to respond to. You can write out some of your thoughts on your journal slip before you go to the discussion board. It's also important to read what others are posting. Be critical in a respectful way of your peers. Until tomorrow, keep thinking, keep learning, and we're going to engage in a brand new phenomenon. So stay tuned.